Hey, I'm April and I'm here with Rachel, and we are going to talk about a homeschool day in the life. So, Rachel.
Yes.
You have told me a few times that you like to do 4-day-a-week schools.
Yes.
So could you explain what the 4-day school looked like?
Yeah. So probably like you, April, when I first started this, it was so overwhelming to think about home educating my own children. I was pretty sure that 5 days a week wasn't going to be enough, and all the time and all those days wasn't going to be enough. But as I got into it, we really learned that for us, we needed that margin of that extra day, because in real life with a family, I've got errands to run, right? And we've got activities we want to be involved in. So we adopted the 4-day week. So we would do church all day on Sunday and really rest, really set that aside as a day of rest. And I think that's so powerful to build that into your week, to model that for your family. So we literally took naps on Sunday, the whole thing.
I would love to.
Yeah, it was glorious.
I try all the time. It never works. It's like my ultimate goal.
I totally get that. So it didn't work all the time, but every now and then we'd get everybody situated down, right, and really rest on Sunday. And then Sunday night was my planning time, which I can't overstate the importance for a mom to get her mind around what you're trying to do for the week, right? So we'd do that. And then we would do school. So I need to back up first and say, I believe that a decision to home educate is 24/7, 365.
Yes. Yeah.
So that said, Monday, Tuesday, we would do school. So our more academic focus. And then on Wednesday, I called it our out day. And I stacked everything that we needed to do out of the house.
Okay.
And I counted that as school, right? So we're growing up with kids now that never go to the grocery store, right? And don't know how to navigate life. And so all the errands that I needed to do, I literally stacked on that one day.
Okay.
So that we could be home Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
Okay.
And then Saturday was family day, yard work day, right? Okay. And that just gave us margin. I mean, sometimes everybody was sick on Monday, Tuesday, right?
So you can switch the days around.
Exactly. You can switch the days around. You can build in. You can switch around. You can accommodate, but you've got margin, right?
Yeah.
And that's just so important.
That's key.
I think a lot of people who quit home education are planning every day from like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and they're just hammering it, right? And I think you're just going to burn out.
Yeah, they feel like they're behind because they didn't accomplish the thing that was on the list for yesterday. So then they add that to today's list, and then it just builds up and builds up.
Exactly.
My sister mentioned that just a few months ago because they had bought a new curriculum that had so much stuff. She said the first couple of weeks, it was like, hey, this is really cool. This is cool. And then all of a sudden, you get a little bit behind, and you're like way behind within a few weeks, and you feel overwhelmed simply because there were too many work pages. It wasn't like the curriculum was bad. It was just like triple what it needed to be. And in your mind, you think, well, if I have this book, I've got to get it all done, obviously. So just to be able to step back and say, okay, to put in that margin of time where, and it's neat that you had it in the middle of the week, because that way you're not dreading this long school week. As a kid and as a parent, it's not like, oh my goodness, look at this. We got 4 days to trudge through, this math lesson. It's like, okay, we got 2 days. We can do 2 days and then take a break and then do the next 2 days. So it can kind of
And on that stacked day that we were out, everybody had something they were reading.
Okay.
So
could be in the car?
Exactly. They would read in the car, or they might do an activity in the car, but it was all redeemed, in other words. It's not like we were doing nothing
Wasted
that day.
Time,
Because again, 24/7, 365, I was just trying to build into them different activities that were appropriate to the moment. And it's funny now because I always used to say, does everybody have a book? You know, when we would get in the car, does everybody have a book?
Or like 5 books.
Right, exactly. Because I would say, don't leave the house without a good book to read, you know? And even now, when they're adults and we'll go on a road trip together, they'll go, does everybody have a book?
Yes.
So we kind of built that in when they were little, and it still is true today.
I do the same thing. I bring books, like if I'm going to the doctor's office or whatever, I bring a book, and then I sometimes will bring my daughter with me because we just want to have hangout time. Even if I'm at the dentist, it's she'll sit in the waiting room with me because we're going to go out to eat or something. But she always brings a book, and I cannot tell you how many people comment on that because it's so rare.
Yes.
When you go into a doctor's office and see everybody's on their screens or whatever, she always brings these thick. She's reading David McCullough, a bunch of the
good
history
for her,
books, and everybody comments oh, what are you reading? So it's almost also a testament to the homeschool life. But so for our day in the life, it's not quite as planned,
Wow.
but we do have several days a week that maybe school doesn't get done. I never have done good at like structuring where it's like, okay, 4 days off, 1 day off.
Sure.
But there's going to be one day during the week, and it might be a different day depending on what's going on, where we're not doing school. We're doing, usually it's something related to the farm. Because,
Sure.
So we're trying to do farm life, and it's all new to all of us. So we're learning as we go. So there will be about 1 day a week where I'm like, okay, this week we're going to do like, we're working on a chicken coop today or something.
Yeah.
And we've got to do something with the ducks or something, whatever. So it's going to be probably 4 days, sometimes 3 days of school, depending on there's something really big going on. But it kind of varies.
Yeah.
And that's partly because of my personality is more type B. We've talked about this before. We're like, there's the type A and the type B. This is where the beauty of homeschooling is, though, because every parent is different and you all have your strengths and weaknesses. And so for us, we're a little bit more unstructured, but it works. But then if you're structured, it also works.
Yeah, exactly.
So like you can play to, if you want to finish all the curriculum, you can finish it. Like you are free to do that. And if you don't want to, it's also like nobody's checking up on you. You are able to say, we're not doing this worksheet, we're going to move on to something else.
Right.
And if it's not working for us, we're going to just cut it all together.
Exactly.
We're going to switch to something else. So it's a very comforting and freeing feeling. But we have, the way I try to structure our day is, no matter what lifestyle you have to eat 3 times a day.
It's true.
Like, and if it's for our family, it's like 6 times a day.
I was gonna say, with the little kids, it's more than 3.
It's like breakfast and then second breakfast and then morning snack. And if I call like for reading time and I don't have a snack, they're like,
I know.
What? Mom, like there's no snack. I'm like, guys, come on, like you just ate your second breakfast. You know, so like calm down. But so I try to structure it around the meal times because that's something that is unchanging. You're always gonna have your meal times. So you have it 3 times a day and then just plug in. Plug in what works for that day. And to me, I feel like after lunch, you've kind of lost their attention span.
Certainly when they're younger.
Yeah.
Certainly.
So I try to have all the heavy curriculum stuff done before lunch, sometime between 9 to 12. Now you have already graduated all your kids, so did it increase a lot throughout the day as they got older, where it had to go a lot past lunch time?
Yeah, I would say so. And this is a tip that I didn't expect to give, but it's really powerful and fits just right here, and that is focus youngest to oldest. Okay, so at the very beginning of your day, make sure you're really pouring into the toddlers, the preschoolers, the youngest kids. Pour into them first, and then give them something that they can do. I did preschool boxes that can amuse them so that you can progress to your older children.
While you're working with the others.
While you're working, because then you've given them their time, right? They've had their mommy touch time, you've snuggled with them, you've seen them, you've looked at their little faces.
Which they need that.
They really need that. If you don't do that, you're gonna have to go back to that all day long.
Yes.
But I've really learned that if you pour into them first, while everybody else is already starting their lessons, maybe doing a workbook page in math, which is appropriate for math, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe doing a journal entry, or maybe doing a chapter book read, or whatever, they can go ahead and start that. They should be self-directed enough to do that, right?
Yeah.
But the littles need mommy.
Yeah.
And they need that time with mommy.
Yeah.
So do that first.
Yeah.
And then step in to your older children. But always work youngest to oldest. Because not only does it pour into the youngest and really encourage them in their own person and say you're valuable to me and not just
you're
step
seen
over
and
them.
Heard. Yeah.
Exactly, and your needs are met. But it also helps your older start to own their education.
Right.
And that's what you want.
Yeah.
You cannot be in charge of it. By the time they're in high school, it ought to be pretty hands-off for you.
Yes.
They ought to be pretty self-directed.
Yeah.
With maybe you sit down and plan with them. But start here and then progress. And to your question, when they were all little, so once upon a time we had 7 under 12. And we were done at noon.
Yeah.
Right now, well, lunchtime.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Whenever lunchtime is.
Whenever lunchtime. So sometimes, it was 1 or 1:30, but we were done then.
Right.
And then I literally, so this was my policy. I kicked everybody out of the house.
Yes.
Go out and play. And yes, it was a sanity break for me, but it was so good for them.
Oh yeah.
To go out and run around.
Yes.
Sometimes I would direct it. I used to love, and now I do this with my grandkids, right, which is glorious, a scavenger hunt in the yard.
Yes.
Like 5 oak leaves, 20 acorns or whatever. And they would just scour the yard. And you know what would happen?
play.
They would run off and play and just lose themselves. They just needed a starting point, right? But then as they got to high school, I'm still kicking them out or putting them down for a nap, the youngers. But the older ones do have homeschool.
Yeah, they do.
They do have homework and projects.
That's what I've seen.
Good.
Yeah. I've seen that increase because our oldest is now high school, his first year of high school. So he spends more time than he used to doing school, but that's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
And he's very self-directed and self-motivated. In fact, the older two are they almost have to be because we kept adding babies. So it's like, sorry, you're going to have to take over your school. And they both like owned it. By the time they were probably even third grade, they were which is unusual. And that hasn't happened with my other kids, but I think they were like, okay, we're going to do this. And they are very self-motivated.
They are.
Very self-taught, and they enjoy that.
Yeah.
In fact, most of the things that I would teach them would only have to be 1 or 2 times, and they got it. It was like, okay, we got this, we're going on. So I was just mostly checking up on their work, and that's still the same today. So it's it kind of gradually got into that. And for the rest of the day, it is like I do classes with my middle ones and then my younger ones because we have twins and then one that's 1 year older. So they're all like a year apart for those 3. So I do classes with them and I just combine subjects for that. And then this is the first year that I've done this and it has been awesome.
Oh, good.
I am writing down a personal planner for them, not for me.
Yeah.
Because I used to do a planner for myself and it never worked out because I wouldn't keep up with it as well as I want to and then be like, well, I've missed this day, I didn't write it down.
Yeah.
So I started writing a planner for them and they kind of own it and they have a checkbox where they can check it off. It has made all the difference. Instead of me telling them, here's what I want you to do today, verbally, when they hear it, they forget it.
Right.
And you have to tell them 10 times.
I couldn't remember when I told them. I mean, that was the thing. I was like, did I tell you to do that?
Did I tell you to read that book? Because I don't know. So writing it down, and then they can check it off, and then they know when they're getting near the end of their list, and it gives them a good feeling. And then they can say, okay, I'm done with my school. So I'll do one class with them where I'm teaching, and then I'll send them off to do their own thing while I do the younger kids class. And I combine them. They're in different workbooks because one is kindergarten, one is first grade, but I'm doing them together. And so like I'm helping your page, I'm helping your page. And it's working easier. But I will say when you have young kids, it is so hard. When they're not school age yet,
it is so hard.
It almost feels like you're slogging along and you think you're not accomplishing anything because they're not doing real school yet. And so you're like, what are we're just kind of like doing the same thing. But when you look back at the end of the year, you see how much they have learned and you see how much your older ones have learned where you think, I wasn't spending enough time teaching them, like, did they get anything? And then you see, hey, they learned like
everything. The
prepositions and the nouns and pronouns, they got it. And
they did,
it's gonna get done.
Yeah.
But it may be like a more circuitous journey than like, you're not necessarily gonna follow the scope and sequence of, the curriculum when you open it up.
Well, and I think too that what I learned, and I didn't know this at first, because I thought when we first brought Charles home, so I think you had the vision for homeschooling all the way along. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So you were ahead of me, right? I was like, no, I don't want to do this. That's for other people, and I'm not one of those people. And
weird, homeschooler.
Weird, how you people are weird. And then I became one of you.
Yeah.
But I thought that this meant that, oh my goodness, there's going to be this huge chunk of time that I'm going to school.
Right, yeah.
And I thought, I don't know how I'm going to do anything. And what I learned was it was really all about incorporating my kids into what I needed to get done at home.
Into life.
And so, I taught them how to do the laundry, and I taught them how to wash the dishes, and I taught them how to make a peanut butter sandwich and a grilled cheese sandwich, and how to prepare a meal, and how to set a table. There were all of these other things of life that are also educational that they need to know.
Life skills.
Exactly. And so teaching them all of those things in between the lessons and the reading time, that was invaluable.
Right, yeah.
So I think it would be helpful though, I'm gonna just run through what a day looked like at our house.
Like start to finish.
I am, and I'm gonna let you do the same thing because I love how Jackson starts his day, so that's a teaser. But so what we did, and again, the beauty of home education is everybody gets to do their own thing. When we were on the board, the state board in North Carolina for, I think it was 12 years, one of the things that we learned, we did a couple of surveys, was there's this period of time when people first start to homeschool Like the first year, they do it exactly like their friend that does it.
Okay.
Right? Because they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And just tell me, I'll do everything that you say. And then like year 2, they do like 1 or 2 things different. But then like by year 3, they're starting to feel it.
Yes.
You know, if they'll just stay with it till year 3, they're like, I can do this. And it's like they start to learn the freedom. So I just want to encourage people that, you know, you're not going to probably get it the first year. And if you do, awesome, but probably not.
Yeah.
It's a learning curve.
Yes.
But when you come into it, you're going to feel what's going to work for you.
Right. You figure it out.
About the 3rd, 4th, 5th year. So give yourself some time.
Yeah.
But the way ours worked is we would get the kids up in the morning and they had morning responsibilities. Which meant they needed to straighten their room. You know, I don't know what fictitious monster comes into my kids' rooms between the time I tuck them into bed at night and I go into their room in the morning, but it wasn't that messy when I put them in bed. And I come in the morning and I don't know what happened. And so they would pick up their room and straighten up their bed, which I think is just basic. I'm one of those people that makes my bed at a hotel room. So I'm just a weird person and I own that. So that's not what everybody does. But we would pick up their room, brush their teeth, and get dressed for the day. And then we would go downstairs. They had breakfast responsibilities. So somebody was doing forks, somebody was emptying the dishwasher, somebody's folding towels, someone's putting cereal on the table, right? And then we would have breakfast, and then we have after breakfast responsibilities, right?
You got to clean it back up.
Exactly, got to do it in reverse.
And that could easily take the first 4 hours of the day.
Exactly. And it takes a lot of patience to train. And then when they get older, like you have olders now, we had olders, and they would train a younger, right?
Yes,
so there's a lot of cooperation, and all of that stuff that's really tedious and seemingly mundane really pays off in the long term. So we're doing all that, and then after breakfast, what worked best for our family is when we were first homeschooling is Davis was going to the office every day. So right after breakfast was our family worship time. And so they would finish, everything would be put away, and we would go over and we'd have family worship. Very simple, a word of scripture out of a devotional book, a couple of hymns, and then we would pray together, and then Davis would go off to work, right? And then we would step into our homeschool day. So again, I always did the littles first while the elders went off and got started. And then we would go and I would do math, age specific, right? But then we did science and Bible and history together, which I hope we're setting some people free with that. You've already mentioned this. That you can really combine a lot of your kids. You don't need to have a different curriculum for every single child. You can actually do it in groups, and that's how we did it, which meant that after that initial morning time, we had reading time. Now, ours was long because we were reading all those different things. We read the Bible and had a Bible study together. We read our science together. We read our history together, and then we usually had a different book, just a read aloud we were doing, maybe literature, right? And it could be 2 to 3 hours of time that I was reading to the kids. And they might be coloring, the boys might be doing Legos, the girls might be doing some cross stitch or some drawing of their own. Always had to have a snack, you know, always had to have a snack. And there's movement, right? This isn't a time of crisscross applesauce. Everybody's got their hands folded. This was a very organic time. Questions, potty breaks, the whole thing. And then it was lunchtime. So I hope that gives people kind of an idea of how it flowed. It wasn't anything really structured. There were no bells going off,
just
and there wasn't. I wasn't watching the clock. It was more a pattern, a rhythm, not really, regimented. And there was a lot of freedom in that. But I do want to say it took me years to get there. But I want to share it because I'm hoping that I can cut those years down for people.
Other people.
So what does your day look like?
So for our day, we have all the kids wake up so early. I mean, they're like early birds, crack of dawn. Sometimes it's still dark and there's like stars in the sky, and they're like getting up for their chores. But I don't want to squelch that, so I'm like, all right, if you're early birds, they all are. So we have one of the twins. Unloads the dishwasher and he makes the breakfast every morning.
Wow.
They do oatmeal every single day, and sometimes I'm like, aren't they tired of oatmeal? And like I'll make eggs or something. They're like, oh, where's the oatmeal? They like it.
Wow,
it's their routine.
That's great.
So he makes the breakfast and he unloads the dishwasher, and then Jackson and Oakley, the two oldest, they both milk a cow. So we started with one cow, and now we have two. Actually, now we have three, but one not ready to milk. So they go out, they do the milking, which takes them about 35 minutes or so. And one of the other twins goes and does the chickens. He feeds the chickens, lets them all out, checks their water, everything. And then Boone, our number 3 kid, who's 10, he goes and waters the plants.
Okay.
So they're all doing outside stuff, and then they all come in. So we do have a bell. They ring the bell for breakfast time, and then everybody converges into the kitchen. They eat breakfast, they make horrific messes, and then they have to clean up. So we do chore time. And I'll strain the milk while the kids are doing all their chore time. So we have sort of a routine. Once that's done, we do morning time, which is like your reading time. So I do try to have everybody together. So for all ages, I do everybody together for reading time, even the 2-year-old, although she doesn't always make it. And I may be painting a rosy picture when I say we like to sit on the couch and like have our cups of tea. And we do that. But during that time, it's going to be kind of chaotic. And, fights may break out, something may get broken, so it's kind of, your potty trainer has an accident on the floor.
It's so true.
Somebody falls off their bunk bed, it has to be rushed off to get, a bone set. This is like normal interruptions.
Exactly.
You look out your window and see the dogs, actually just a couple days ago, the dog's dragging a dead chicken across the yard, and you're like, how did the chicken get out?
No.
How did he find it before we could find it? And then actually the same day, we see the calf has jumped over the electric fence and is like cavorting down the driveway. Like just hopping along, running.
Just a day at the farm.
So your life is going to have interruptions all day long.
Yeah.
And so it may not be farm animals, it might be something else, but it's going to be equally crazy and it can be disruptive. So you have to look at the bigger picture, knowing all of these interruptions are absolutely going to come.
Yes.
And instead of getting frustrated by them, realize this is part of my day. This is part of what God has given me for today.
Real life.
Cleaning up that potty accident, that's just part of the day. And so you just do the things, and you might look at the clock and say, okay, an hour has gone by that I was supposed to be doing reading time and I didn't get to it. It's okay, start it now. So sometimes our reading time starts at like 8:30, sometimes it's like 10:30 because interruptions. So you just start it when your breakfast is done, put away. So we do reading time all together. Halfway through, usually the little one has to go to her nap. That's fine. We put her in bed, come back to reading time, and we do the same thing. We'll do Bible, and then I'm reading a history book. And the way I keep all ages engaged is with our chapter books, I mix in little kid chapter books that are also still interesting to big kids, because the big kids, they love to listen to anything. And if it's a too hard book to follow for the little ones, they lose their interest. So I try to keep it on a little bit lower level, like let's say Little House on the Prairie. And Little Britches is fun. I have a lot of like boy heavy books because we have a lot of boys, but By the Great Horn Spoon. It's funny, it's comical, and it's a fun adventure for the boys. So find books in the age range that like old and young can both enjoy. So we do that. We'll do reading time, and then right now I'm working through a book on the presidents and then a book on church history. That just happens to be what I'm doing right now. But then we will move on into our separate classes. Now, if my morning time gets too long, the kids like lose their attention span, and then they have to go out and play before their class starts. But if I let it go too long, they end up playing, and then it's lunchtime. So it has to be short breaks. So if I can see that they're losing their attention, they're getting drowsy or whatever, I say, okay, you can go play, but I am going to ring the bell and you're going to come back in soon. And so prepare them.
Exactly.
You got to come back for school. So then we do the class where I do the 3 middle boys, and then I do a class with the 3 younger, actually the 2 younger boys, and then my 4-year-old, he just kind of hangs out. He does whatever he wants. Sometimes he's in there, sometimes he's not, and that's fun. And then we have, probably by then it's lunchtime, then we have nap time. So my daughter, everybody has a separate chore at lunch, and her chore is putting the 2 little ones to bed. She tells them a story.
That's so
it's precious because they cannot go to their nap time without a story. So she puts them in their 2 separate rooms, tells them a little story, tucks them in, and that's her afternoon chore. It takes probably like 15, 20 minutes while the other kids are cleaning the kitchen from lunch. And after that, it's typically free time. If it's cold outside and like middle of winter, then they might want to play inside. Then I'll turn on an audiobook, let them just play, run wild in the living room or the upstairs. And if it's not cold, they will go outside, and they're gone for the rest of the day.
Which is awesome.
They want to live outside. And they want to be building and doing all their adventures. And so I have really, really emphasized nature and being outside for our whole life, and only as they got older was I adding in more and more school, because the childhood is so short.
It is.
And that season of like wonder and exploring and like playing with sticks and rocks, they're not going to be doing that when they're 20 years old.
No.
They have a few years to do that. And so I really value that time. And I don't look at it as a waste of time.
No.
I look at that as a key part of childhood. So when they're having their adventures and their fun, right now they're into cops and robbers. It is hilarious. They are so wrapped up in it.
Wow.
Like, I looked out the other day and they were barricaded with the wheelbarrow.
Oh,
and
yeah.
there's one like shooting, you know, and another one, he jumped into the back of the truck and over the roof of the truck, like climbing and jumped down. It was so fast. And they're like having like a cop and robber chase. And I'm like, oh my word, how did that just happen? But they're so wrapped up, it is so real to them.
Yeah.
And it's precious. And I love that. So I'm not gonna, when I see that, I'm not gonna be like, come get this work page finished. I'm like, okay, they're engaged in life.
Yeah.
So I make them finish as much as we can before lunch. After that, it is like free time.
It's true.
And I really enjoy that part of their life because they're building memories, and it's very special. So then after that, we have free time is probably 3 hours-ish.
Sure.
Come in, get ready for supper time, do their supper time chores, and then we get ready for our family devotions, which is like the only time the house is actually clean during the day. It's a wonderful time. Turn on the low lamps and make it cozy. That's actually one of the things I think is important, is making like a pleasant atmosphere for learning. I think that when your mind is cluttered, you can't, you know, focus on learning. So that's kind of a part of it, but that's a side topic. So anyway, that's our day in the life. And I would say start with a plan, but then hold it pretty open, because you're going to have other things that you were not expecting come up.
You're always going to have those things. We hope that this is helpful for you as you develop your rhythm of the day as you step out on your homeschool adventure.